A gorgeous alpha showed up in our village, and the mayor had him stay at my house. He was ethereal like a god walking on earth. Wasn't this the kind of partner my mom always hoped I'd find? I was up at the crack of dawn and worked late into the night, fawning over the beautiful man. But he looked down on me for being a beta. He also looked down on me for being a country boy. The day he left, I chased his little sedan, tripping and falling flat on my face in the dirt. The great beauty didn't even glance back. I gave up. I got engaged to the sickly beta from our village. On my wedding day, I was happily making toasts. The main gate was kicked open. The beautiful alpha stood in the doorway, his face as dark as a thundercloud. I stood by the door, listening to Dylan and his bodyguard talk about leaving. After just a few words, I felt a pang of regret. Eavesdropping is wrong. Michael, since when did you start doing such shady things? I dug my nails into my palm, peeked at the handsome alpha through the crack in the door, and turned to leave. I had to go turn on the water heater. Otherwise, when Dylan went to use it, he'd complain that the water wasn't hot again. I tiptoed downstairs and ran right into my mom. My mom is a beta too. Her own beta father died in a mudslide up in the mountains when she was 8. She had to carry the whole family on her own. In her later years, all the grief and hardship she'd bottled up turned to silver in her hair. Michael, is Dylan asleep? I shook my head. Mom, I want to talk to you about something. What is it? She asked. Why the serious face? I scratched my head and stared at the floor. Mom, would you be willing to move to the city? My mom was surprised. Move to the city for what? We're perfectly fine here at home. I scratched my head again, trying to figure out how to put it. It was because Dylan was leaving. We were a couple now, so we should be together. But if Mom didn't want to go, I didn't want to go either. I didn't say that out loud, but my mom understood. She didn't answer right away, just reached out and stroked my head. It doesn't matter where I am, as long as you're happy. Michael, just don't let anyone take advantage of you. I sniffled, seeing the worry in her eyes, and managed to smile. Don't worry, Mom, I won't. Besides, haven't you always been anxious for me to get married? Soon, there'll be a third person in this house. My mom smiled too. I urged her to go to bed. After she went to her room, Dylan came downstairs. His bodyguard followed behind him. Dylan wasn't from Greenfield. He was from a big city, and his family had some trouble, so he came to the countryside to lay low. My house was brand new, built with the money I'd made from selling more than a dozen harvests of watermelons. The 2-story house was the nicest in the whole village. I had originally built it to get married and give my mom peace of mind. Once the house was finished, the matchmakers did come calling, but I always felt like something was missing. Because of my inexplicable pickiness, the house's other owner was still nowhere to be found. That's why the mayor sent Dylan to my place. He even tried to pay me, but I refused. The first time I saw Dylan, I was stunned. Such a handsome alpha, like an angel. I'd never seen anyone so good looking outside of TV. I took meticulous care of him, not for any other reason than that an alpha that beautiful shouldn't have to suffer. But I never expected that on a quiet afternoon, Dylan would pull me aside and ask if I wanted to be with him. Looking at that face, the thought of saying no never even crossed my mind. Just like that, we'd been secretly dating for almost 2 months. Now, it was time for Dylan to go home. The money I had saved up was enough for a down payment on a small apartment. If I worked hard, I could definitely put down roots in Dylan's city. And if my mom agreed to move to the city, I'd have to start thinking about marriage. My heart felt giddy. Dylan walked up to me and, ignoring the bodyguard, took my hand. He asked with a grin, "What are you thinking about that's making you so happy?" I squeezed his hand back, swinging it gently. Thinking about getting married. The smile on Dylan's lips faltered. Why are you thinking so far ahead? A sour feeling, like I'd bitten into an unripe berry, spread through my chest. Is marriage really that far ahead? But isn't getting married the whole point of dating? Otherwise, you're just messing around. I stared at Dylan's face, thinking he's too beautiful to be a player. Sensing my mood drop, Dylan tried to change the subject. Didn't you say you wanted to show me your secret spot? Wanna go now? I was a little torn. My secret spot was something I wanted to show my future partner. But what if Dylan didn't want to be my partner? Should I show him or not? Well, are we going? Dylan leaned in, his breath tickling my ear. I started to feel hot all over. You don't get so close. Dylan blew a puff of air against my ear. We're dating. If I don't get close to you, who should I get close to? He had a point. I wasn't so resistant anymore. Okay, fine. I'll take you. I led Dylan up to the roof. I plopped down on the rooftop, then laughed at Dylan, who was standing stiffly with a disgusted look on his face. It's fine. We're gonna shower later anyway. Dylan's face was rigid as he shook his head. No way. It's filthy. My hand, which had been patting the empty space next to me, froze. It's not dirty. Cleaned it. Dylan wasn't listening. I thought we were going to a secret spot. What are we doing up here? My hand curled slightly. You have to lie down to see it. Dylan refused to lie down, and he didn't want me to either, so he reached out and pulled me up. If I have to lie down, then I don't want to see it. Dylan turned to leave, but I grabbed him, compromising. Fine, you can see it standing up. It just wouldn't be as beautiful. Do you see that star? Dylan gave a perfunctory aha. I let go of his arm, my desire to share my secret vanishing. I actually gave that star a name. Dylan wrapped his arms around my waist. Yeah, I get it. Let's go down. It's hot. There are a lot of mosquitoes and I want to take a shower. Feeling his restless hands on my waist, I lowered my eyes. Okay. We went down the stairs, one after the other. On the last step, Dylan stumbled and said impatiently, "Let's not come here again. The stairs are so steep, and what's so great about stars anyway?" A faint breeze brushed my face, but my chest felt tight and heavy. When I looked up again, the once brilliant star was hidden behind dark clouds. Michael, what are you spacing out for? Dylan pulled me into the bathroom. The water was just the right temperature. Dylan took my hand and had me help him undress. His perfect 8-pack abs glistened with water droplets. I looked away, full of envy. It wasn't the first time I'd seen Dylan's abs, but every time, I felt a pang of jealousy. I subconsciously pinched my own flat stomach. The difference between an alpha and a beta is huge. Your abs are amazing. Through the steam, Dylan's gaze deepened. It's easy. Too bad you're a beta and can't build them like this. I picked at the calluses on my palm. Yeah. Dylan smiled. What's mine is yours. No difference. He took my hand and pressed it against his firm abs. He leaned closer, nibbling lightly on my neck. Help me. He guided my hand downward. In the swirling steam, I shoved the alpha, now lost to his desires, away from me. We can only do that kind of thing after we're married. Dylan looked at the resolve on my face and scoffed. Get out. I looked at him for a moment, then turned and left. You have to be married to do something like that. Dylan didn't say goodnight to me that night. I lay on the stiff bamboo mat that always pinched my skin, staring at the slowly oscillating fan, and didn't fall asleep until after midnight. The next day, I was woken by the roosters crowing around 8 or 9. I got up and went to Dylan's room. I knocked a dozen times, but there was no answer. My heart began to pound with a frantic rhythm. I twisted the doorknob. The room was empty. I stood there for a few seconds, then bolted. It was hot, and even the wind felt scorching. Michael, where are you going? The mayor called out to me. I'm looking for Dylan. I shouted back. The mayor paused. Didn't Dylan leave? He didn't tell you? The sun was shining, but a chill ran down my spine. When did he leave? A mechanical buzzing filled my ears, and I could barely hear my own voice. I stared at the mayor's lips, trying to make out the words. I just saw the car that picked him up at the edge of the village. He probably hasn't gone far. I hastily thanked the mayor and sprinted toward the village entrance. My mind was blank. There was only one thought. Run faster, even faster. I saw the endless road ahead and, without a second thought, turned and took a shortcut up the mountain. Finally, covered in bleeding scratches, I saw the silhouette of the car. Dylan. Dylan. It's me, Michael. You forgot me. Dylan. Dylan. My voice echoed through the valley, carrying out beyond the mountains. I didn't stop running. I held my breath and ran with all my might. Just as the car was about to come into focus, my legs gave out, and I tripped, falling into a pile of dirt. The car blurred in my vision again. Dylan. My voice was raw and tasted of blood. The car didn't stop. I slowly pushed myself up, raising a hand to my face. Cool tears wet my fingertips. The cuts from the branches stung fiercely as the bitter tears ran into them. Suddenly, the car, which had almost disappeared from view, stopped. My old, laggy phone buzzed in my pocket. I opened it. It was a text message. From Dylan. Said, "Michael, we're over." I was quiet on the way back. With every beat, my heart slammed against my ribs, and it hurt. A tight, suffocating pain. I walked home, a complete mess. The mayor was waiting at my gate. As soon as he saw me, he rushed over. "Michael, you're about to strike it rich." I was stunned. Huh? The mayor clapped me on the shoulder. "Someone just called me. Said he wants to buy out your entire watermelon crop." "What? All of them?" I had 10 acres of watermelons. At 3,000 kilos per acre, after factoring in the cost of seedlings and fertilizer, I stood to make at least $40,000. $40,000. My eyes lit up. "For real? Uncle, you're not kidding me, are you?" "He wants them all?" The mayor nodded. "Yeah, he's not a scammer. The deposit already came through. 52,000. I'll transfer it to you. You'd better get picking now. They're coming to pick them up tomorrow." I immediately pushed my pain to the back of my mind, grabbed my straw hat, and headed for the fields. I couldn't handle it alone, so the mayor found 2 young beta guys to help. The 3 of us spent the whole morning harvesting 4 acres of watermelons. At noon, I told them to go home for lunch and come back in the afternoon when it was cooler. But I didn't go home. I kept picking. The scorching sun beat down on me, and sweat poured off me like rain. I had to hurry. They were coming to collect them tomorrow. And as long as I was working, I wouldn't think about Dylan, wouldn't think about why he'd abandoned me. As if I were competing with myself, I picked another dozen watermelons in one go. When I finished and looked up, my vision went black, and my mind went blank as I collapsed. Just before I passed out, I vaguely saw a figure getting closer and closer. A ghost? I thought. But it's the middle of the day. This ghost has some nerve. With that last thought, I closed my eyes and lost consciousness completely. When I opened my eyes again, I was shivering with cold. An ice-cold hand was roaming over my body. I flinched, trying to pull away, but my chin was held firmly in place. I forced my heavy eyelids open and saw an angel. "So beautiful," I murmured. The angel chuckled softly. "How beautiful." Without thinking, I said, "Even more beautiful than Dylan." The angel's smile widened, his eyes like spring water. "Is that so?" A wave of sadness washed over me. Just mentioning Dylan's name made my heart ache. The angel's hand brushed past the corner of my eye. When he lifted it, there was a teardrop on his fingertip. "You're very sad. Why? Can you tell me?" His gentle, low voice was like an ancient spell, making me want to pour out all my grievances. "Dylan left me." The angel asked, "What was your relationship? Why did he leave you?" I blinked my sore, hot eyes. "We were dating. He went back to the city and told me we were over." The thought of it made my heart bubble with misery. My first relationship ever. And I got dumped. I didn't know if I was sadder about Dylan himself or about this short-lived first love. But you're not just sad about being dumped. What else is there? The angel's gentle murmur coaxed out the last bit of pain from the bottom of my heart. I told my mom I was going to get married. I'd even prepared the engagement gift. I even went up the mountain to pick promise grass to make a ring. Promise grass was a tradition in Greenfield. If you loved someone and planned to be with them fators, you had to climb the highest, steepest mountain to pick it. I picked it. I'd even asked the most skilled Omega on the west side of the village to weave it into a ring. But it was all for nothing. And now I had to make my mom worry. "How about you consider finding someone else?" The angel's water-dipped fingertip dabbed my lips. My lips were moistened, but my mind grew foggy. Yeah, I could just find someone else. But where am I going to find someone? My breath was shallow. The angel leaned closer, and a clean, cool scent of snow enveloped me. He said, "What about me?" I stared at his face, so beautiful it seemed like something from a dream, and nodded dazedly. "Okay." The angel held out his hand. "Then put it on me." I took the promised grass, wrapped in red cloth, from my pocket and carefully placed it on his long, slender, well-defined finger. The red of the promised grass contrasted with his pale skin. I couldn't stop myself from pressing a kiss it. "Mine," I said. Then I gave a silly smile, closed my eyes, and fainted again. When I woke up again, I saw the person in front of me and reached out in a daze. "Am I dreaming again?" The angel smiled, pressing his cheek against mine. "Do I feel warm?" My heart pounded as I nodded numbly. "Yes." "Then it's real." He straightened up. "My name is Julian. I'm a beta." I repeated, "Michael. Also a beta." Julian stared at me details, and my face slowly started to turn red. I wanted to look away, but I found myself drowning in his beautiful eyes. A curve played on Julian's lips. "Are you feeling better?" I nodded. He leaned closer, our breaths mingling. "Do you remember what happened yesterday?" My ears started to turn red, too. I remember. Julian's fingertips danced on my eyelashes like butterflies. "Does it still count?" I was speechless. What was I supposed to say? I had just been through a romance that ended with me face down in the dirt. Could I really accept a new, seemingly more wonderful one right now? Just as I hesitated, Julian raised the hand the promised grass ring. My parents passed away not long ago. Their dying wish was for me to find someone of the same gender to spend my life with. Julian lowered his gaze, looking almost pitiful. "The grief weakened me, and I chose to come here to recover. Seeing you reminded me of my parents' wish. If you don't want yesterday to count, then let's just forget it." Julian's gentle voice was tinged with sadness. My heart felt like it was being squeezed, and my fingers curled slightly. "I've heated up some water. Take your medicine before you leave." He stood up to get the water, but my hand moved faster than my brain, grabbing the hand with the ring. "It counts. As long as you don't mind me, it's fine." I brought Julian home. When my mom saw him, her eyes flashed with admiration, then worry. When she learned he was a beta like me, she relaxed. "Have a seat. I'll go get you something to eat." My mom greeted Julian warmly, then pulled me aside as she went to get the food. "Where did you meet this beta?" I scratched my head. "I fainted in the fields and Julian saved me." My mom was shocked and immediately started checking me over. I had to explain several times that I was fine before she finally relaxed. "So you're dating him?" "Dylan, let's not talk about him." "Where is this one from? Do you know who his parents are?" When I shook my head, she poked my forehead disapprovingly. "All you see is a pretty face." I was embarrassed, but he really was beautiful. My mom understood me. She pushed me away and went to talk to Julian. In their back and forth, she got all the information she needed. Julian's parents had recently passed away, and his health had declined due to grief. That's why he came to Greenfield to recuperate. He had arrived last summer and was staying at old Mr. Henderson's house on the west side of the village. The Henderson family had moved abroad. Julian had bought the house. He was a recluse and lived on the sparsely populated west side, so very few people knew about him. A few days ago, he'd come across his parents' will and discovered their final wish. They wanted him to find someone of the same gender and live a good life. Coincidentally, I was about to take a nap that day when I suddenly felt unwell. I followed a small path and saw Michael collapsed in the field. Julian smiled. "I think it must be fate." My mom bought it. She held Julian's hand and wouldn't let go. She even asked for his birth chart details, and when they matched, she was even happier. She said we were a match made in heaven. She immediately wanted to pick an auspicious date for the wedding. I blushed crimson and quickly pulled her back. "Mom, you've been asking questions forever. Let him have a drink of water." My mom slapped her forehead. I got excited. "You two chat. I'm gonna find old Mrs. Weber to pick a good date." My mom was so fast I couldn't even stop her. I turned back to meet Julian's teasing smile and scratched my head. "My mom really likes you." Julian's smile deepened, making his already beautiful face breathtaking. "It's my honor." I took a small step back, afraid my racing heart would disturb the beautiful scene. But Julian wouldn't let me. He leaned closer, his leg brushing against mine, our body heat transferring through the thin fabric. He said, "And you? Do you like me?" I said, "I like you." His smile grew even more beautiful. His warm palm pressed against my hand as he leaned. "Me too." With my mom's enthusiasm, Julian moved into our house. He was very skilled. That night, he cooked a 6-course meal. The look in my mom's eyes she watched him was glowing. When I tasted the food, my eyes lit up too. His cooking was every bit as good as the village caterers. Julian and my mom got along great. All they talked about was the upcoming wedding. I couldn't get a word in, so I went out to the fields to pull weeds. The watermelons had been sold. The big boss sent people to pick them up. He gave me the full 52,000. I offered the money to Julian, but he refused. I told him it was the engagement gift, and he accepted with a smile. Time flew by. The day before the wedding, I felt inexplicably anxious. I swept the yard again and again. Julian sat in a chair, watching me intently, which only made me sweep more vigorously. "Michael, come take a break." "Okay," I answered, walking over stiffly. I took the tea he handed me. "Where's Mom?" "She went to hand out invitations," Julian replied. I nodded. Julian pulled me down to sit beside him and used a cool, snow-scented handkerchief to gently wipe the sweat from my face. I sat up straight, letting him wipe. When his hand reached my neck, I swallowed hard. "You smell really good. Like snow. So cool and fresh." The handkerchief brushed against my Adam's apple from time to time. Julian's soft laughter by my ear. "Really? This is probably the body wash. You like it?" I looked at Julian's beautiful face. My ears abjito's hot. "Yeah, I like it." Julian pulled his hand back and looked straight into my eyes. "Want to get a closer sniff?" Before I could react, Julian hugged me. The scent of snow filled my senses. My face grew hot. Feeling Julian's warmth, I carefully hugged him back. In his arms, I drifted off, thinking, isn't Julian a beta? His frame is so big, much taller than mine. So which one of us is the wife? But he's not in good health. It would be tiring for him to be on top, right? Never mind, I'll do it. With that settled in my mind, I looked forward to the wedding tomorrow even more. Julian kissed my fingertips and said, "We'll get our IDs later and go apply for a marriage license." I nodded. Okay. By the time we got back from getting the license, it was already evening. Julian quickly whipped up a 4-course meal with soup. After dinner, I pulled him up to the roof. Julian tucked a strand of my wind-tousled hair behind my ear. "What are we doing up here?" I rubbed the calluses on my palm. "I want to show you a secret." Julian's eyes lit up. "What is it?" I was about to lie down, but Dylan's words from that night echoed in my ears. "Forget it, we'll stand." I took Julian's hand and pointed to the star-filled sky. "There's a star." Julian followed my gaze. "I see it. It's small but very bright." My heart beat a little faster. I gave it a name. "Do you want to know what it is? Are you willing to tell me?" Julian's eyes reflected the galaxy as he gently sought my opinion. I nodded. I used to watch the stars a lot when I was little. My dad said that when people die, they fly up to the sky and become stars, watching over the ones they love below. The day my dad passed away, I came to look at the stars and I saw it. I got lost in the memory. I watched the stars all night that night. Later, I thought, when I get married, I have to bring my partner to see this star. It was about seeing the star, but it was also about showing my dad. This is the person I'll spend my life with. Please watch over him, too. Julian was clever. He understood immediately. He smiled and hugged me. "So, what's the star's name?" I clammed up. Julian chuckled. "What's wrong?" I shook my head. "I just made it up. It's a silly name. Don't laugh." Julian kissed my ear. "I won't." "Watermelon Patch." As I whispered the name, Julian froze. I quickly explained, "I just made it up. If you don't like it, you can rename it." "No, I love it." Julian cut me off. "I love the name. It's very fitting." My attention was fixated on the word love, and I didn't quite catch the rest. "As long as you like it, we should go down. There are a lot of mosquitoes here." Julian held my hand. It's so cool up here. Let's stay and watch a little longer. My nose started to sting. Okay. Julian noticed. He asked, "Did you think of something sad?" I looked at his concerned face and decided to confess everything about Dylan and me. When I finished, I lay sprawled on the roof. Julian didn't hesitate to lie down next to me. The summer night breeze carried a hint of coolness, and the sky full of stars twinkled. I sighed. I just don't get why we had to break up. Julian reached out and pinched my cheek. Don't think about things you can't figure out. It's not worth the trouble. Besides, the one marrying you now is me. So please stop thinking about other people. Julian propped himself up, hovering over me and looking into my dazed eyes. He kissed my forehead. Then he buried his head in the crook of my neck. I get jealous, too. My chest burned. I raised my arms, hugged the man in my embrace. I leaned in very close to his ear. Okay, no more thinking about others. It's only you now. Julian's eyes darkened. I lifted my head and kissed his lips. As our lips and tongues intertwined, Julian said, his voice thick with desire, "Baby, open up." I parted my lips in a daze, letting Julian conquer me. His kiss was nothing like the person he seemed to be. It was fierce and suffocating. Julian and I lay on the roof all night. The next morning, my mom rushed us downstairs to change into our wedding clothes. They were two custom-made, sharp-looking suits. Mine was black, Julian's was white. We didn't invite many people, just relatives from my side of the family. The ceremony was in the yard. Amid cheers, Julian and I exchanged our vows. Just as Julian and I were toasting the elders, Dylan appeared. His face was grim, his eyes fixed on me like a rabid dog. The large bouquet of flowers in his arms shed petals continuously. "Michael, you betrayed me?" Everyone stunned, including me. I glanced back at Julian. Julian's hand rested on my shoulder, a gesture of trust. I relaxed. "Dylan, we're over. Today is my wedding day. If you're here to congratulate me, have a seat. If not, please leave." My tone was firm. Dylan looked at me, his eyes turning red. He violently threw the roses to the ground and strode over. "Your wedding day? How long have I been gone? Not even a week. And you dare to have a wedding day with someone else?" I left. "I didn't fucking die," Dylan roared, reaching out to grab me. Julian sheltered me in his arms, his voice cool. "Looking for trouble?" Dylan stood his ground, hands on his hips like a caged animal, glaring at Julian. A flicker of shock crossed his eyes, quickly replaced by anger. "I'm looking for trouble? I was gone for a few days and you fucking stole my guy? That's not cool, man." Julian laughed. "Weren't you the one who broke up with him? Did you leave and then realize you were in love with Michael after all?" I could clearly see Dylan flinch, a flash of unease on his face as if his thoughts had been exposed. Before he could start shouting again, I spoke up. "Dylan, you're the one who said it was over. The record is on my phone. You're the one who wronged me. I, Michael, have done nothing to wrong you. Also, are you sure you want to cause a scene?" As I finished speaking, the young beta and alpha men of the village stood up, a massive crowd of them. They were all my family, my kin. Dylan stared at me. "You're going to hit me?" I was getting impatient. "Why would I hit you for no reason?" Dylan let out a bitter laugh, his eyes bloodshot, his handsome face twisted and ugly. I quickly looked back at Julian, trying to cleanse my eyes. How could I have been so blind to fall for him? He couldn't even compare to Julian's little finger. He kicked over a bottle of wine, and glass shards scattered everywhere. "Michael, you've got guts." He turned to leave, but I stopped him. "You broke a bottle of wine." The joy in Dylan's eyes turned to shock. "So?" I took Julian's hand, and we stood each other. I said, "As payment, just say, 'Congratulations on your wedding, Michael and Julian.'" Dylan's jaw tightened, his temples throbbing. He released his alpha pheromones as a show of force. Before I could feel anything, I was enveloped in a cool, snowy scent. The pressure from Dylan's pheromones vanished instantly. "You're an alpha?" Dylan looked at Julian, his gaze flickering between us. After a moment, he laughed out loud. "Michael, did you know he's an alpha?" My mind wandered. I looked up at Julian. He met my gaze calmly, but his hand holding mine tightened. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and when I opened them again, I was calm. I knew I wouldn't marry a stranger. Dylan gritted his teeth, stared at Julian for a long time, then suddenly slapped his own forehead. I knew you looked familiar. So it's Julian Croft. Julian Croft? I lowered my gaze, pressing my tongue against the roof of my mouth. How much had Julian hidden from me? This wasn't the time to settle scores. We talked tonight behind closed doors. Michael, do you have any idea who this guy is? And you dare to marry him? Haha, he murdered his parents and his siblings. He's a notorious boogeyman among the DC elite. He's a top-tier alpha with $1 billion fortune. And he hides his identity to come to this little mountain village to marry a country beta. Michael, can't you use your brain and think about it for a second? The yard fell silent. My mom cried out my name, and I gave her a reassuring look. Then I held up Julian's hand with the promised grass ring and said to Dylan, "Our business is none of your concern." Dylan looked like he wanted to strangle me. "Michael, I'm doing this for your own good." I smiled. "I don't need it. I have my partner." Julian was quiet the whole time, his gaze on me, never leaving for a second. Dylan left. The banquet was over. I had my mom return all the cash gifts. After all, no one had a very pleasant time at this wedding feast. Julian helped me clean up the yard. Neither of us spoke a word. It wasn't until a little rainbow appeared in the water as we were hosing down the greasy ground. Julian gently tugged on my arm. "Look, a rainbow." I was still mad, but I followed his gaze. The stream of water refracted the sunlight, creating a rainbow. It was beautiful. After admiring it, I went back to sweeping. Julian was at a loss. "I'll explain." Finally, he's willing to talk. I scoffed. "I'm not listening." Julian dropped the hose and grabbed me. "You'll listen whether you want to or not. Let go of me." Julian slung me over his shoulder. In that moment, I understood the difference between an alpha and a beta. Julian might look slender, but his arms were like iron clamps. I couldn't break free no matter how hard I tried. Julian didn't say a word, just carried me back to our honeymoon suite. He tossed me onto the big red quilt embroidered with golden dragons and phoenixes. Before I could recover, Julian came over. "Husband, it's time for our wedding night." With that one sentence, blood rushed to my head. And all the way down. Julian saw it, chuckled, and took my hand, placing it on his collar. "Husband, help me unbutton it." That husband made my ears tingle. I looked at Julian's face, wanting to look away, but I couldn't. Julian knew how to use his beauty. He guided my hand by button. The jacket came off, revealing the white shirt underneath. My eyes widened. This sickly man had more defined chest and muscles than me, a beta who did manual labor every day. I suspected they were fake. Julian chuckled, softly pressed my hand against them. Soft and real. The feel of them was nice. My nose felt a little hot, and my blood rushed. Julian was about to move closer, but I forced myself to snap out of it and pushed him away with my foot. "You haven't explained yet." Julian's hand on my ankle paused, and he sighed softly. "Baby, can we wait until after? The arrow's already on the bowstring." I stood my ground. "No, explain." Julian tried to bargain. "Fine, I'll explain. But I was so generous today. Can't I get a little reward?" I opened my mouth to refuse. Julian pressed closer, his divine face magnified before my eyes. He said, "You ask one question, I answer. For every answer, you take off one piece of clothing. Deal? Deal?" Of course not. My heart was hammering. In the end, I couldn't resist the temptation. I nodded, cursing myself for being so weak. "Why did you hide your identity as a top-tier alpha?" Julian said, "Being a beta reduces unnecessary trouble." True, compared to a beta, an alpha's identity would definitely stand out in a rural village. I took off my jacket and asked, "Why did you come to Greenfield?" Julian said, "To recuperate." I frowned. "From what?" Julian took my hand, put it in his palm. "A broken heart." I thought of what Dylan had said about Julian being a boogeyman. I took off one shoe. "What kind of broken heart? Be specific." Julian told me the truth about his parents' deaths. The Croft family was powerful, with their hands in everything, legit and otherwise. His parents believed in survival of the fittest and were strict with their 3 children. On the day of the eldest brother's wedding, he secretly saw company shares being given to Julian, and the largest share went to him. He decided to kill him, but he failed. Julian's father died protecting him. When his mother found out the truth, she died of a cerebral hemorrhage. Then his sister accidentally drowned. In just a few days, only Julian and his older brother were left of their family of 5. In the end, the power struggle concluded with his brother falling a cliff. After inheriting the family business, Julian was plagued by nightmares. He handed the company over to a team he'd trained and came to Greenfield alone. It was to clear his head and to find peace. As he finished, Julian gripped my hand tightly. "Michael, I used to have loving parents, a respectable older brother, and an adorable sister. But now all of that is gone." I looked at the trembling Julian and pulled him into a hug. "You still have me." Julian looked up and kissed me. "Michael, the luckiest thing that ever happened to me was meeting you." I hooked my hands around his neck and shyly spread my legs. "Come on, let me have you completely." Julian's eyes darkened as he pressed down on my thigh. "It's going to hurt." I blushed, turned my face away. "I'm tough. I can take it." The words had barely left my mouth when my world went upside down. I stared at the ceiling, sprawled on the red wedding quilt, digging my nails into Julian's arm. When I woke up the next day, I tried to move my face, instantly froze. Pain. Soreness. I was more exhausted than after a full day was in the fields. But thankfully, Julian had carried me to wash up afterward. Although the washing took a bit long, and I passed out again midway through. All in all, the wedding night was great. Except for my position, everything else was as wonderful as I'd imagined. As I was contemplating this, held my waist, Julian came in. He was wearing yesterday's white shirt, and red marks ran from his back up to his neck. Anyone could tell how intense things had gotten under that shirt. "You're awake. Have some porridge." I let Julian feed me. After I finished, I suddenly remembered something. "So, everything you told my mom was a lie? Why did you lie to her?" I demanded. Julian put the bowl down and suddenly pulled a ring out of his pocket. A huge diamond. He tried to put it on me, but I pulled my hand away. "I don't want it." Julian casually tossed the ring into the trash can. I immediately shot up, ignoring the pain to retrieve the ring. "Are you crazy? How much did this cost? How can you be so wasteful?" Julian looked at my pale face, scooped me up, and placed me back on the bed. "If you don't like it, then it's worthless." Seeing the gloom in Julian's eyes, I felt like I was onto something. It was fuzzy, intangible, but it lingered in my mind. "Let's not talk about the ring. You haven't answered my question." I wrapped the ring in a tissue and put it on the nightstand. Julian lightly squeezed the promised grass ring on his finger, then finally looked at me. "Do you have to know?" I nodded. I didn't want to live in a fog, with barriers between us for the rest of our lives. Things needed to be said to be resolved. Otherwise, they'd snowball and eventually it would be too late. "If you're not willing to talk now, let's separate for a while. Cool off." Before I could finish, Julian's lips was on mine. This Julian was a perfect match for the fierce, undisguised Julian from last night. I let him kiss and bite me, unresponsive. A moment later, as if begging for mercy, Julian bowed his head and bit my collarbone. "What am I going to do? I always lose to you. I didn't dare let you know. I was afraid you'd leave me." Julian's gentle sigh with hot against my collarbone. My hand, hanging at my side, Rose interlaced my fingers with his. "I won't. Since I chose you, even if you were a murderer, I'd wait for you to get out of prison." My stubbornness was on full display. Julian looked up, his eyes reflecting my image. He said, "It's so good that you married me." I swatted his wandering hand away. "Nonsense." Julian suddenly pulled me out to go. "Let's go." I was confused. "Where?" To explain. "I don't want to sleep in separate rooms when we just got married." Julian took me back to his house on the west side of the village. We went up to the roof. Standing there, I was confused. What exactly do you want me to see? My waist hurt, but I could bear it. But Julian noticed anyway. He held me, his fingertips was on my lower back. The right amount of pressure slightly eased my discomfort. What are we looking at? I leaned against Julian and asked again. He pointed to the vast expanse of fields before us. That's your watermelon patch. I paused, squinting. It really was. But I didn't understand what this had to do with Julian's elaborate scheme to get close to me. Julian leaned closer. The thing I did most was stand here and watch you work. My heart thrummed, my chest vibrating. Why were you watching me work? Julian's gaze fell on the watermelon patch. His face devoid of any fake gentleness. It was pure, undisguised madness and obsession. When I first came to Greenfield, I was miserable every day. I'd sit on the roof, watch you water the crops under the scorching sun. I thought, why would anyone be so stupid as to water at noon? Are they illiterate? I let out a huh and looked up at Julian. What? Later, I learned that once the pump on, you have to water the whole field before you can turn it off. Julian looked at me. I thought, it turns out I'm the illiterate one. An agricultural illiterate. My fingers curled slightly. I felt something on my finger and looked down. A simple band with a yellow diamond was now on my middle finger. Julian reached out, his hand on mine. The woven promise grass ring and the yellow diamond shimmered together. Strange, yet harmonious. Julian rested his chin on my collarbone and continued. Later, watching you work in the fields became a habit. When the crops were good, the smile on your face was like a sunny day. When they weren't, you'd stroke the leaves and sigh. Back then, I thought, why am I not God? Then I could make your crops thrive, you'd smile every day. When you didn't come to the fields, I'd think, let it rain so you'll come back to check on things. Seeing you every day became a habit. And my broken heart was from losing my family to just seeing you appear. Michael, I found my medicine in Greenfield. I let his words crash into my heart. They made it beat chaotically. Thump, 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 crazy. Like wheat shoots after a heavy rain, wildly. My throat was a little dry. I tried to find my voice, but a lump in my throat blocked it. During all those days of toiling in the dirt, a pair of intense eyes had been watching me. I couldn't tell if I was or something else. I couldn't figure out if this was right or wrong. All I could think was that one sentence. Michael, you're my medicine. The yellow diamond brightly, like water droplets sprayed on the fields under the midday sun. Every drop held a rainbow. My palm kept brushing against the back of Julian's hand. So you wanted to date me a long time ago? Julian nodded. Yes. That's why when I saw you with a hickey, I almost went. Jealousy was tearing my stomach apart. I wanted to confront you, but I felt I had no right. You didn't even know my name. At that moment, Julian's face was dark, full of possessive jealousy, and a madness that seemed ready to destroy everything. It was a side of him I'd never seen. But I wasn't afraid. I just let my body lean into his embrace. Our warmth through the thin fabric. Julian calmed down. I thought I'd spend the rest of my life in pain and torment, until I saw you collapse in the field. I thought, is this a chance God is giving me? If it is, then from now on, I will burn incense and pray to every day to repay this wish. A wish. I was his wish. That word was heavier than like or love. I placed my hand over my heart. Your wish came true. You saved me. Julian tightened his arms, as if to merge me into his body. It did. But then I started to show humanity's worst trait, greed. I wanted you to love me, to look at me, to be with me forever. So, elite. But not entirely. My mother really did say before she died that she wanted me to get married and settle down. And I really am an orphan now. Julian's voice was sly. More importantly, my birth chart is real. He bit my ear. We're a match made in heaven. I shoved him away, turned to look at his face, and my frustration away. You shouldn't date someone too beautiful. It makes you soft. I stood on my toes and bit his lip. Gently, not daring to use force, just grinding my teeth lightly against it. Much gentler than how he'd bitten my thigh last night. I bit for a moment, then let go. Julian greedily leaned in for more. I stepped back, forgetting I was still in his arms. He pulled me by the waist, kissed me again. When the kiss ended, I rested my head on his shoulder, steadying my breath. Then I asked, "Is there anything else you're hiding from me?" Julian shook his head. "Nope. I'll have my secretary bring over a summary of my assets later." I rubbed my lips. "What for?" Julian licked the blood from my lip where my tooth had caught it. "To hand them over to you." I shook my head. "No thanks. Are you sure there's nothing else you're hiding?" Julian nodded without a hint of hesitation. Patted him. "Okay. Everything now is forgiven. If any old issue's up again, it won't be as simple as just talking it out." As I said that, I saw Julian's expression freeze. I waited for a while, and when he didn't say anything, I pushed him away and started down the stairs first. After we talked, Julian really did bring me projects worth tens of billions of dollars. I dropped my pen. I didn't want to sign. Julian's gentle expression vanished. He said he'd donate it all. I stopped him, saying we'd give it to our child when they were born. Julian became gentle again. And Julian really is sick. When he has an episode, he just lies in bed, listless. I told his secretary to call a doctor, but the secretary just closed the door. He spoke through the door, "Mrs. Croft, you are the boss's medicine. Just hold him and he'll be fine." I didn't believe it, but I lifted the covers, hugged him anyway. Julian's episode stopped, but his lust flared up. As he was on top of me, he'd ask with red-rimmed eyes why my first relationship wasn't with him. At that point, my pupils were dilated, and I couldn't answer. And that inability to answer lasted for 3 days. Every time I came downstairs, my mom would hand me a bowl of stewed chicken soup. Ever since she found out Julian was an alpha, she stopped calling him her son-in-law and just called him her son. "Michael, have you and Julian thought about having kids?" I almost fell over as I ran the door. I fled to the mayor's house. It was time to buy wheat seeds. No more sweet potatoes this year. We'd plant wheat for the last season. Next year, I planned to take my mom and Julian traveling, to see all the beautiful sights of the country. On my way to the general store, I got a call from Dylan. That's when I remembered I hadn't deleted him yet. "Michael, are you okay?" Dylan's voice was tentative this time, of its previous aggression. I replied, "If there's nothing, let's not talk. It'll make my husband misunderstand." Dylan gasped, then suppressed a shout. "Michael, don't think Julian is some good guy. He's a fake. He pretends to be gentle and pitiful you because you don't know any better you around." I frowned. "He didn't play me or lie to me. Dylan, you played me, you abandoned me, and you were the one who said it was over. Are you just bitter? Or do you actually regret it?" Silence on the other end. I continued, "It's over, Dylan. We should both move on. Let's not talk anymore." I was about to hang up when Dylan urgently said, "Michael, do you know who bought your watermelons?" It was Julian. He did it on purpose. He has ulterior motives. You can't win against him. "Dylan, Julian has already told me everything." I looked at the store sign and said calmly, "Goodbye, Dylan. Don't make this memory any uglier. And I'm sure your father, the senator, wouldn't want a scandal about his son playing with a beta's feelings to break during a critical time, right?" Dylan tried to explain, "I wasn't playing with you." He stopped himself, then said after a long pause, "Michael, I really do love you." I watched ants their home and thought, it's gonna rain. Then I hung up and swiftly deleted all his contact information. Then I sent a big knife emoji to Julian, who was at home dinner, and put my phone in my pocket. The guilty party would understand. "Michael, what can I do for you?" The mayor greeted me cheerfully. I greeted him back and asked, "Do you still have the phone number of that big boss who wanted to buy my watermelons?" The mayor nodded. "Sure do. It's in my phone. You need it?" I nodded. "I'll copy it down. I have a question for him." The mayor immediately got me a pen and paper. As I leaned over the counter to write, I heard the mayor chatting with others. "That's what you call a rich person naming a star. You're not kidding. But this rich guy has no class. What kind of stupid name is Watermelon Patch? So tacky." My pen. "What's this?" The mayor moved aside me to see the TV. "It's on the news. Someone bought the naming rights to a star and called it Watermelon Patch. It's trending online because it's so tacky." I immediately saw the small text at the bottom. The person who bought the naming rights was the CEO of Croft Industries. A star. Watermelon patch. Croft. My ears started to burn. I thanked the mayor, the paper with the number, and hurried home. When I got to my gate, I started dialing the number. As expected, Julian came out. He stood on the second-floor balcony, looking at me, holding a vibrating phone. Then he answered, "Hello, this is Julian Croft. Can I help you?" I looked up at him and replied, "Yeah, nothing major. Just wanted to ask the boss. How were the watermelons?" Julian's voice was laced with a lazy smile. "Delicious. Very sweet, very juicy." I smiled. "Is that so? Then why did Mr. Croft buy so many watermelons?" Julian said, "My partner was heartbroken. I didn't want him to dwell on his ex, so I found something for him to do so he wouldn't think about it." My heart started to tingle. I hung up. "Come down." Julian obediently came down, the pink, chicken brand logo apron fashionable on him. He stood in front of me. I stared at him. "Didn't you say there was nothing else?" Julian looked surprised. "This counts?" I thought of the star and decided to let it slide. But I still had to scold him a bit. "Don't do flashy, impractical things next time. I know you love me and you know I love you. That's enough." Julian took my hand. "You forgive me?" I tried to pull my hand away but couldn't. "What else can I do? Are you sure there's really nothing else you're hiding from me this time?" Julian nodded. "Nothing this time." I believed him. That evening, after dinner, my mom went out to watch people play cards, and Julian and I went back up to the roof. We lay on the rooftop, pressed against each other. I looked at the star named Watermelon Patch, and Julian looked at me. I turned my head to meet his gaze. "What do your pheromones smell like?" Julian said, "You already know." I blinked. "Snow?" He nodded, leaning closer, his arm around my waist. "My pheromones are special. Very few people can smell them. Besides my parents, you're the first." I rested my head on his arm. "I'm so honored." Julian kissed my forehead. "No, I'm honored that my pheromones can be smelled by you." I snuggled closer into Julian's embrace. The scattered starlight of the universe fell upon us. In that moment, I thought, let time slow down. Then I thought, it's okay if it doesn't. The person next to me isn't going to change. Just like Watermelon Patch in the sky, he'll always be there. Husband. Tonight, the atmosphere was shattered. I rolled over to get away from this perv. Julian, as if predicting my move, wrapped his arms around me. Just once. That face once again became the bargaining chip that made me yield. Just once. Julian kissed me. I parted my lips. But I never expected that just once could last until dawn. I looked at the still unsatisfied Julian and kicked him out of bed. But when Julian stared at me with that face that could make angels weep, I gave in again. As I blissfully passed out, Julian kissed my tear-stained lips. The cool scent of snow enveloped me. He said, "Michael, I love you." I said, "Julian, I love you."